Yeah.
I'm good.
Like that much and like, when I left, I was hungry.
Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting to order. Welcome up again. First thing we need to do is approve the agenda. Yeah, we need to vote. So move. Go first.
I'll second.
First and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those saying. All right, motion passes to approve on the agenda. The next item is the member request to the board.
My name is Tim Kane. I'm here to talk tonight about solar. We just have a few questions. I help people install solar, so we get lots of questions. And we want to make sure that we're telling them the correct answers. Some of the questions that we have is how you guys figure the solar rates, how that all came about. What's the maximum they can put on, even though it's in the records or the diagram? It's still, they like to know how much they can go before they get in too much trouble. They call us because they said they can't get some answers, so we're just trying to, we don't want to overstep our steps. We want to know what's consistent with the RMC.
So a lot of that is, the people we've talked to, I've been approached by other people also that have had it installed, where I guess they're very unaware of what solar is, how it works, how much it should cost. We've got systems out there that shouldn't cost $15,000 or $20,000 and people are paying $50,000 and $60,000 for them. And I think it's good for the members to have some document that they understand what they should be paying. Not only what they're, as far as what they're getting back from the solar, but what they're initially paying for the solar. And honestly, other than filling out the form to get access to put that in, there's really nothing that's out there that tells them that. So we're getting people that are getting duped by companies from outside of Greensburg that are going to be regretting what they've done. So what we've asked is that try to put something together to simplify what systems should cost, what they should be putting on their house or farm or whatever they're putting it on, and understand what's reasonable. So, and there's no real good document for that. And I know that I've helped 14, 15 people here in Greensburg, and they've all been happy. Everybody's basically gotten what they've said they were going to get. They're happy with what they've got, what they're getting from it, how it's performing. But you can't say the same thing for what they're getting from other companies. So we just want somehow to get that out to the people so they understand what they should be getting from them, what the benefit is, and what's right. So what we're looking here is to get something put together to basically address this. So I know we've met with Brett and talked to him about it, and I think we've come up with something to put together, but that's what we're after. And I'll be honest with you, everybody here that I've worked with has been great. I have no complaints with the support we've gotten from inside RMC, how people come out. It's been great. I can vouch for that because I tried to put some on in a friend of mine's house in Ohio. It was a nightmare. It was a literal nightmare. After 4 months, I finally told him I'm not going to be able to help you. I would like for us to take a lead in this around here and address the problems we know that are out there. And again, cost, it's embarrassing that somebody would pay $55,000 and they're paying $250 a month payment for solar that's saving them 80 or 100 bucks. They just don't understand, and we need to fix that. So that's what we're asking for here.
You know, the members that you've worked with, have they been in contact with the REMC before they started their project?
Everybody I've been in contact with has, I either know them, I call it the friends and family. And that's how it is. It's friends and family. They call us, they call me, they call Tim, and they say, hey, I hear you got solar. And I track my stuff for 4 years. Show them month by month, how it produced, what I got out of it, how much it cost me. And they ask, well, how do you know what to buy, what to get? I said, well, there's companies out there. And we just do research on how they, if they're a tier one company or some run of the mill, whatever place that you can buy stuff that's just going to fall apart. And honestly, we've done trials on south installations, east-west installations, different kinds of installations where we've been told that you can't do, but actually we found out that it's wrong. And we've got we've got data basically showing that there's other ways of installing it on people's houses or barns or buildings or whatever on east and west that actually outperform south. So we just want people to understand and have a fact sheet so they can come to REMC so we can say, hey, guys, here's a sheet. This is from REMC. This is what they say. Everybody's agreed upon, and this is what's available out there and what you should be paying for. It's just, I'm sorry, it's sad to see somebody paying for 25 years, $240 a month to save 60 or $80 a month. It's just, I feel bad because I've got so many people out there that are just tickled to death with what they've got.
The RMC's been good. I mean, when they call, they fill out the paperwork. We help them fill out their paperwork to make sure it's correct. They can get a 12-month, if they're on Smart Hub, it actually tells you what you've used. But it's nice to get a piece of paper, maybe go back a few more years, take a look. But sometimes that information is a little hard to understand for just the general public. I mean, we can look at it and see what they've been using, but something to make it a little bit easier so they don't get taken.
So are you a document? Is that what you're looking
Yes.
for? A document grid supported by grids, data?
Yeah, fact sheet. That's basically on communication from the RMC to the member. So they're not, so the RMC's got something in to let them know that they're not getting taken.
Just kind of a return on their investment, what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And some of that's consumer responsibilities
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
Does our RMC refer people when they call in interested in sober? Do we have?
No, so we don't do that, but well, it depends. So, yeah, I mean, I guess
We do not refer.
Well,
I don't think we'd want to get into it.
right, and
Get into the return on their investment from what they're purchasing,
No.
not names. Is that what you're asking? Just basically communication?
our whole, like, our vision is really been, we want to be a resource for the members. I agree. We actually started to put together kind of an FAQ, just talking to these guys. We want to be a resource, but yet we don't want to get into the business of, hey, this is right for you or it's not.
suggestions. Yeah, I mean, to me,
Or the return on investment?
we're an education piece.
Yes.
Here's
To look forward.
here's the information. Here's things you can see, because we definitely don't want to get into suggesting recommendations or anything like that. We definitely do not want to be there.
But putting together an FAQ, updating our website we actually had a good talk about like some things that people are asking questions about. Honestly, some of this stuff's already available from Hoosier that we can use, just rebranded our name. So I'm all for it. I'm all for helping educate.
Because you met earlier this week once or twice, or I don't know how many times.
We met the other day. Yeah.
Okay. And you've already begun to
I've already got about 8 questions. I sent some of them to you guys. What I kind of came up, actually, Terry came up with a great idea. The way the rate is set up, you get credit for energy and some production demand, but there's also owning solar, you don't own poles and wires. So there's some things in there that's not. And, as Terry and I were talking about, Tim, it's like, that's hard to explain for somebody that doesn't know the industry very well. So Terry was like, well, maybe we could do like an image. And I think that's a wonderful idea that really isn't going to be that hard to put together to kind of show, hey, this is what the value streams of rooftop solar and how we come up with what that rate is. And I think it would be very easy to put together an image that showed that. And that was kind of Terry's idea. So we can put together like a fact sheet. We can put together that image. I'm telling you, there's a ton of tools available already through Hoosier that we can link to our website, get our website really interactive. There's some videos. It was kind of interesting because when I talked to Terry, I had by the way, I do appreciate these guys coming in and talking to us because number one, I learned much. So I had no idea that depending on where you set your unit, it kind of depends on your usage, right? So if you're somebody that uses heavy in the morning or heavy during the day, you may want to have it facing a different direction than if you're a heavy user, you know, at night. I never put that together. So there's actually some videos that we can get from Hoosier that are already created to our website and help out. And then, so what I told these guys was I'll put together, we'll start a kind of literally just email with fact sheets, kind of get all that done. And then we'll send it to Hoosier or whatever, or have our marketing department kind of spruce it up, add that to our website. It's a printable document. These guys can hand it out, whoever can hand it out, just kind of a fact sheet with just pretty generic stuff, but stuff that I get it, like stuff that I don't, you know, so that is really not going to be a whole lot. I don't even think we need to like kill other projects to put this in place. I think this is something we could really just go do.
So you've already added basically to your action item list you guys are working.
We're already working on it. And I'll send these guys kind of over. Quite honestly, I want to get together with some other developers in the area too, to kind of get their input on all this so that we're all on the same page. These guys even offered up if we do I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, we did the workshop out at the solar site. They offered up also to help on that. If we want to do another one of those, which, I mean, I think there was 20 or so. I mean, there were some people there, so I don't have any problem with doing that again. We kind of wanted to do it as a part of our strategic plan anyway.
Do you have any idea, Brett, timeline, what you're thinking about? I mean, how quickly I don't know exactly what you're all pulling together.
It's going to take us a month to pull the information together and then probably, I'd say 2 months.
By fall,
It
then.
could be earlier. I mean, honestly, if it's all available, like I think it is, because I checked some of the other RMCs in the state of Indiana's solar sites, and there's 2 or 3 that have literally the exact same thing. It's just that it says a different name at the bottom, which means somebody's creating that content and they're sharing. So it's either coming from our statewide or coming from Hoosier. If that stuff's and I'm telling you, it's good. Get on Clark County RMC. Their website for solar is exactly what these guys are talking about. So if all that is created, it could be 2 weeks. But if we got to create some stuff and that, I'd say 2 months is reasonable. If not quicker. I don't think it's going to take a lot of resources, is my point.
So updating the website and then having a handout when they come to sign up for solar that's probably more important than the website.
Because we would like to be able to tell them when they come down here and get your information, to be able to get that fact sheet. And for them to understand what they should be getting and what the benefits are. And again, I'm not asking you guys to refer people because I don't want any referrals. I'm busy enough doing what I do anyway. But I just feel bad for people. I really do. And it's crazy what these people are spending on stuff. And I don't know how they can, I don't know their mindset. But
And I'll back up exactly what you're saying too. There's, quite honestly, if you look at the calls we get from members on installed solar, we very rarely get a call from any of the local developers whatsoever. It's usually the big chain guys that come in and sell something, and then of course they don't have anybody else to talk to after it's installed. The company's gone, so who do they call? They call us. Well, at that point, it's like we're not real helpful, right? We got to get in front of it.
So it sounds like you're already working on a solution.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement? And
we just want to make sure everybody's aware.
Everybody's aware, everybody's on the same.
It's not that we're, like I said, I don't have any complaints at all. I have none. And it never was about complaints about wanting to meet with you guys. It was about the stuff that we talked to other people about and them not being aware of it. It's like, hey, we should have something out there where they can just have a 1-page sheet that says, okay, well, this makes sense. Or what I should be doing, or, you know, not saying you guys should be regulating their prices, but my goodness, somebody needs to understand the payback is
investment.
Yeah.
We're getting asked questions that we shouldn't be answering for some customers. know, why is the RNC charged this much? I don't know. That's what was set up. That's what it is right now. They call and ask us those kind of questions and
It's gotten down to the point of installed systems for people. And I tell them, well, so-and-so says, you know, an electrician says, we should be doing this. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be. And they're going back, clear back to Tesla and Edison days when they decided on AC or DC. And I'm trying to explain to them, that's not how it works. I said, and I explained it to them. I said, I will guarantee you this, when you get done, we'll check your voltage and this is what you'll have down here. Whatever the loss is, it calculates out. It's just a number, it's math. I'll calculate it out and I'll show them, say, see, here it is. They go, oh, you're right. I go, it's just math. It's nothing magic. It's just explaining it to them. And then they're happy. They understand it. It makes sense to them then. But, you know, that's the kind of questions that we get asked when we're doing this stuff. And it's like, we're just trying to educate people and, you know, explain why they can't do this or they can't do that. And it's just, it would be great to have something so that they could call our co-op and say, hey, I'm looking at this. What should I expect? And that would just help out. It would help them out.
Yeah, and Terry, I would offer up even today, I mean, Crystal used to run the department up there and took all the applications. You guys are more than welcome today. If you have people that have questions, I mean, we're an open door. All they got to do is come. Even today, we don't need to wait until we get this stuff.
And you guys have two very good meter technicians. They understand it, they get it. They know what's going on. And I think they would be a benefit too.
Yep. So if you have people call in, we'll field those calls. No problem. If I will tell you this, if we can't get them an answer, we'll find an answer because we have a lot of resources at our hands to get answers. But Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add. She kind of ran that department.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that I completely agree. We wish that people would call us before they go and pay other people $55,000. Already signed my contract and they're already doing the work. So we definitely need to somehow communicate that much better so that they're aware they need to call the REMC first. But that's just not what happens. These companies are very pushy and they're targeting the older people and they don't know any different. So they're thinking, I'm gonna have this loan and I'm gonna pay $250 a month and I'm going to save that much on my electric bill. Not really much that we can do at that point in time, so.
Once this is polished and developed, is there any reason we couldn't do a community room event like we've done for others?
No.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that'd be an opportunity to educate in mass, hopefully, if there's that much interest.
Yeah, we did it last time. We did it out the solar side.
Right there.
Yeah. And that's kind of cool because we can bring a user in, people can actually tour it.
And you can have these documents, you can have them out to anybody interested, they can have documents. So it sounds like, and I appreciate the suggestions and.
It's really tough to get people involved. That's always been our biggest struggle with this is, you know, we'll market the crap out of doing an event like this and we're going to get 20 people. But you don't know until you try.
Anyone else from the board have any questions, comments? Terry or Tim, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Well, we appreciate you coming out and
Thanks, guys.
helping us, making the suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
You can't stick around if you want.
Lisa will keep supper warm.
The next one on the agenda is safety minute and cool moment. Unfortunately, because of the dynamics of the storm, Colin won't be here to go over things, but I think we have a video link playing, so.
Yeah, so I'll go over a couple of things. One is just the safety minute number one. As you guys all know, we have a decent sized outage. In fact, Matt and I were looking at the statistics this morning. We're like, man, we haven't had a big outage in this. So currently we got about a little over 1,000 people. It's 35 unique outages. We've got everybody out. We also have our two two stakers that are what we call bird dogging. So they're out in front of them looking at assessment. I do not believe we have 3 broken poles so far, which isn't bad in a situation like with these high winds. So anyways, hoping for the safety of the crews. You and me. Yeah, keep going. So the cool moment, I got 2 cool moments. One is Colin, which we're gonna go over here in a minute. Unfortunately, like I said, Colin couldn't be here, so I thought I'd show the video. The other cool moment was our annual meeting. I think we got rave reviews. We had a really, really good turnout. I sent you guys, I think, some of the information, but we served over 850 meals. We had over, how many was it that registered?
428.
28 that registered. Heard really good things about the food and the ice cream, and the flow of everything. So I think we found a formula here that could work for future. The other thing I want to show, which I know it's sad to say that 26% you're proud, but I can tell you we are the highest in the state with that. So we had 26% voting turnout. Sort of the same trends we're seeing is, more people are going to online, slow, but more people are converting to online than paper. But anyways, the numbers really turned out well. So thought it was a great job. I want to congratulate my team and the board for helping, and it's a great event.
And we will be sending out the survey in the next 2 weeks. So on the look.
We have vote counts by district.
No, we didn't pay for that last 2 years. We did, you can, but yeah. Remember, we did that a couple of years ago and then we didn't really use the information. It was like, so no, we did. All right, you ready? I'm gonna go for the. Sure. Yeah. Cool. So it's kind of neat to talk to Colin. I hope to get him back in here when we get a chance. If you know Colin, he's a humble, very quiet man. And it's interesting to hear him talk about this because he actually is gets very excited and talks about it. So we'll try to get him in, but for now he's out working.
Well, we certainly thank him for going
Yep.
and attending. All right, the next item is for your information. Anybody have any questions regarding any topics in that list?
Read on the Indianapolis Indians game, you just buy a block of tickets. Is that what you do on that?
Yeah.
I know.
Well, we bought a block of tickets and then a couple extra people ended up going.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just,
Yeah, it was a neat event. We actually had really good participation. It was good.
Anyone else?
I've got one question. Check register page 2, D&T Power contractual bill backs for January through March. It's at $25,000.
Lot. Power bill, we send them. Porta potty. Trailer. I think if there's anything else, it's their site that they got out there.
Okay.
Best.
I guess the real name is Layout Yard.
Anyone else? Any additional questions? We're good? All right, let's go to the next item on the agenda, approval of the previous minutes. I think Brett, that's what you pulled up there, is that correct?
Yep. I have a couple corrections. This first one's just a typo, United States of America, not United Stated of America. And then
Was that it?
right there,
Toward the very bottom of that paragraph, it's showing
after the audit report out,
right there,
keep going down.
all the way to the bottom. That United Stated.
You're almost there.
Right there. It's fine.
There you go. And then on down, we moved to approve the write-offs for 2022. And I think in an effort to be consistent, we usually show the amount, and it was 13,486.51. I think we should put that in the minutes.
Can you give me that one more time, sir?
13,486.31.
Is that okay like that?
Yeah.
If no one has anything else, we need a motion to approve with a couple of additional modifications.
Make a motion to approve with the changes.
Move first,
Second.
first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes, minutes approved. With the additional changes. Next item on the agenda, Robert, is we're going to go over some governance best practices and policies and the election.
Yes, so to start off, I'm just gonna go over, I think we do this every year, there's only one new board member, but it's for his benefit and all the previous board members. It's just a good reminder of kind of specific policies and stuff that are required and expected of board members. And so to start off, I'll discuss policy number 1-3.
Let me interrupt for just 1 second. If you guys need to look at it, you could go to dashboard to review those policies as we go through them, because we don't have a hard copy of them in front of us. Okay, thanks.
Sure, thank you. And I'm going to start off with policy number 1-3C, and that involves the board of directors, and it involves the director's involvement with the CEO and employees and the interrelationship between the directors and employees of the RMC. And the objective of it is to establish a policy of the basic relationship between the board of directors and the CEO, including the principles involving the delegation of authority. Thank you. And just a few specific things. These are essentially guidelines to help management of the RMC. And I'll read the most important points, I guess. The policy 2A states, it is recognized that good management is the most crucial factor to the success of the RMC. In exercising such management, the board of directors reserves its responsibility to establish policy, approve plans and programs, and delegate authority to its CEO, except those that are by law, the articles of incorporations and bylaws of the RMC conferred upon or reserved to its members. And I'll also move on to policy 2E. It shall be distinctly understood that the CEO shall be the connecting link between the board of directors and employees. However, the board of directors and employees of the RMC may interact by phone or in person. If the topic being discussed is on business of the RMC, the employee must have documented that the chain of command was attempted to be followed. Employees have the right to decline to speak with board members or request that a member of the management be present if they do not feel that they can speak on the topic at hand or do not feel comfortable doing so. So essentially, the purpose of this is just to establish that it is the board of directors' job to make policies that govern the RMC, and it's the CEO and other employees to implement those policies. And generally speaking, interactions or concerns from the board should go through the CEO down the chain of command to employees. Now, that does not prevent any of you from talking or discussing matters with them if it involves specifically RMC business. Employee generally should go through the chain of command before contacting a board member in that. And board members need to be able to make decisions as a board. So they shouldn't be making representations on behalf of the board to employees or other people in the public about RMC's policies or anything to that effect. Does anybody have any questions about this?
If an employee approaches me, what steps do I have to cover myself or to stay out of this situation? Do I go to the CEO? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and a lot of it would be kind of depending on what they approach you and what they say. And I think that, you know, it's expected that you'll use good judgment, and I imagine the longer you serve, the more you'll understand it. But if they come up to you and they have a complaint or something, I think you should tell them to first go through the chain of command in that area. If they have a concern about something on an RMC policy or something like that, you can bring it up to a board meeting and discuss with other board members and have talked to the chairman of the board. They can pass it on to Brett, the CEO, who can deal with it through other employees. And that's generally speaking the case. Every situation is a little
Right,
but that's generally how it should be handled.
Robert, to that point, if one of my members approaches me regarding solar and they have a question, I'm going to direct them to Brett, but I'm not precluded from attending that meeting with them when they meet with Brett, am I? I mean, as a director, as long as I'm not, for lack of a better term, carrying the torch for them. I mean, from an information standpoint, I can attend the meetings just like anybody else could, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And, you know, you should check with Brett and everything and make sure you're going to the proper procedures and everything, and just make sure that everybody's aware of it. And so just as long as you don't convey to anyone that you can do anything on behalf of the RMC outside of through board meetings and through the whole board of directors, the board of directors as a whole. That's the primary purpose of this policy. And so generally, anything that you have to an employee or outside in the public, an issue that comes up should be first communicated to Brett as the CEO and let him go through the chain of command of the management of the operations of the RMC. Okay, the next one is the Director Code of Ethics and Oath of Office. And I'm going to kind of go through, I'm going to go through it in detail just so it's the main thing that you have to abide by, basically a code of conduct. And that's policy bulletin number 1-10, called Director Code of Ethics and Oath of Office. If anybody needs to look at that. And essentially the objective of it is to develop an oath of office which incorporates a highly regarded code of ethics. And the purpose is to pledge all directors to this oath at the time of the election. So I'll just read it to you, and if you want to read along, you're welcome to. If you have any questions, you can stop me at any time or ask when I've completed it. So, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Decatur County RMC has established the following oath to achieve the above objectives. I will above all things be honest and diligent. I will place the interest of the RMC above my personal interests. I will not expect any special privileges from Decatur County RMC because I am a director. I will give as careful attention to the affairs of Decatur County RMC as I give to my own business. I will not become financially interested in any business or agency that has a substantial interest adverse to those of Decatur County RMC. I will represent Decatur County RMC in its entirety and not just the members from my district. I will give necessary time to directors' meetings. I will not interfere with management, but will limit myself to the formulation of business and management policies. I will do independent and careful thinking. I will be open-minded and realize that the views of individual directors cannot always prevail. I will remember that the majority rules. I will not discuss the confidential affairs of Decatur County RMC with unauthorized persons or employees other than management unless delegated by the Board of Directors to do so. I will study the business and problems of the Rural Electric Program and attend state and national meetings in order that I can better understand the entire national program. I will encourage management to strive for continued and increased efficiency. I will welcome new ideas for the membership corporation in providing additional services. I will curb emotion and apply reason and common sense to all problems. I pledge to do my best for Decatur County RMC and for the members who have elected me to serve in this position of high honor and trust. Does anybody have any questions about those?
The only question I had, I think it was addressed before, is that I will attend state and national meetings if, schedules or conflict, but that's not a requirement. That's just a requirement. It's just our continuing ed, correct? Even though it says I will attend state and national meetings.
Yeah, if you are signed up to do so, that you will attend those that you have agreed. And just if you look at the bottom of this, it talks about the responsibility that the chairman of board of directors and CEO shall be responsible for inviting the attention of board members any non-adherence to this policy. And it's the responsibility of the chairman to seek coordination with the RMC attorney if there are any questions regarding conflict of interest. And we'll get in a little more detail to the conflict of interest in a moment. The next one is just a whistleblower policy. And that is policy 1-13. And the objective of this policy is for the handling of complaints by RMC employees about RMC accounting, internal accounting controls or auditing matters, or about illegal or unethical conduct by RMC employees, officers, or directors. And the purpose of it is to prohibit any disciplinary or retaliatory action against any director, officer, or employee who reports in good faith any violation. So this is essentially any person who in good faith believes that there's somebody or some action that's going on that's in violation of the law or the RMC's policies or its bylaws or articles of incorporation. If you look at the policy, you can, it's to be brought up, it should be brought up to the CEO, Brett, or the chairman of the board. In the event that is one of them, I would bring it up to the other. If it's both of them in these events, very unlikely, bring it up to the vice chairman. Does anyone have any questions about that? This is probably, the next one is the conflict of interest policy. It's policy bulletin 1-14 version 2. This is what probably I think you should really pay attention to if it ever comes up. Hopefully it doesn't, but I think it's incumbent on all of you to make sure that if anything along this line comes up, that you handle it appropriately, and then it will not be an issue. And so let me read the objectives to start out. The objective of this is to protect the RMC. The RMC is an organization exempt from taxes pursuant to IRC 501(c)(12). So when somebody's contemplating entering into a transaction or arrangement that might benefit his or her private interests as a director or officer of the RMC, anything that might result in a possible excess benefit transaction. That's IRS language. I'll try to be a little more clear in English. Essentially, if anything that the RMC is involved in that you could have you or close member of your family or some other connection with you would have a financial interest, it's the main thing. And I think that each of you should probably look at this very closely and just make sure that it's a small town. There's people deal with the RMC on a number of bases all the time. So things can come up and there are ways to deal with it if they do. You just want to make sure that if you follow the policies and everything, that you do not act on anything in which you would have a conflict of interest, because the repercussions both for the RMC and for you individually could be quite severe. Without getting into any detail, though, they can be dealt with. If you come across anything where you or a close family member may have a financial interest in a transaction that involves the RMC, you need to take some steps. And the basic step is to disclose it to the other board members and find out exactly what it is. You can read through this policy. I won't go through all of it in details, but if you talk about in paragraph 2, it talks about what exactly financial interest and how it would affect you. So anybody could have a financial interest, and it's not necessarily a conflict of interest. I'll just read this briefly. Under Article 3, Section 2, a person who has a financial interest may have a conflict of interest only if the appropriate governing board or committee decides that a conflict of interest exists. While all financial interests should be disclosed, the financial interest will be considered insubstantial and not subject to board review if the annual aggregate amount is less than $2,500. So if it comes to that amount, it's not going to be considered a conflict of interest, but it still should be disclosed. And so any financial interest that you have in anything involving the REMC, you need to disclose. And there's a process, and the other board members will vote on whether or not they think it is a conflict of interest. And if they do, then you can be excluded from the portion of the meeting where that matter is being discussed. You would abstain from voting on that matter if there is indeed a conflict of interest. Does anybody have any questions about that? This is the one thing that I would say that you just want to be very careful and make sure that if anything does come up along those lines, that you deal with it appropriately. And if you do that, then there shouldn't be any problems. And then the last section that I'm dealing with is going to be director conduct policy. It's policy number 1-16. It's basically the purpose of this policy is to establish minimum qualifications as required by law and the bylaws of Decatur County REMC for a person to be eligible to be elected and to serve on the board of directors. It's further to establish standards, rules, and procedures by which the board must conduct itself. It is the ultimate responsibility of the board to ensure that the requirements are met. You have met the requirements to be a board member, otherwise you wouldn't be here, and that was established before you were elected. Now, if at any time the board should determine that a person on the board lacks or has lost any necessary qualification, it's the duty of the board to disqualify that person and declare him ineligible. There's procedures within the bylaws for doing any of this if it becomes necessary. As discussed earlier, any conflict of interest is the main thing that needs to be disclosed. This policy also talks about the fiduciary relationship, and I think that's important for you, that by being a board member of the board of directors, you have a fiduciary duty to the REMC. And just to clarify what exactly that is and how it applies to your service on the board, it requires, among other things, that you adhere to all requirements of law, the REMC's articles of incorporations, its bylaws, policies, and decisions made by the REMC. It requires you to be loyal to the REMC, acting at all times in good faith and for its best interests. It requires that you be unaffected by any continuing and substantial personal interest that is in conflict with best interests of the REMC. And it requires you to be possessed of and have the minimum knowledge and skills necessary to manage the affairs of the REMC, and that you be willing to devote the time and effort to your duties as a director as may be necessary to manage the REMC. You can read through this policy, and it talks about how to conduct yourself along with the other directors and everything. I don't see anything that will be a great issue. There's a section on director access to data and information. As a director, you have access to vast majority, if not all, of the of information required to govern the REMC. There are procedures to follow if you need that information outside of a board meeting, or that's what's called. You can look through here. Other board members, CEO can direct you if you have any questions about that for following those procedures. There's limits to what you can use with that data, and I'd be very careful about doing it. You can only use the data for the benefit of the REMC. You cannot use it for your personal benefit. You can't use it to do anything inappropriate as a vendetta against any person or employee. So you must follow the procedures for obtaining the data and use it for the correct purpose. There are certain data that are personal, regardless as far as employee information, their personnel records, many of their, not all, but many of their income information, their salaries for the REMC, and that. We can get into specific details, but if you need that at any time, Mr. Brett and different employees can provide that. Any questions on this policy?
Okay, one thing I want to comment on your, on the tables, there's a couple things that need to be signed in regard to reading policies. So make certain you turn them in at the end of the week. Well, thanks, Robert. I think the next task then is for you to hold the officers election.
So we're going to elect officers. We'll just go by each position. And I will start by asking if there's anybody who wants to name a nominee. Someone can second that. Nominate as many people as you want. Generally speaking, when somebody votes to close the nominees for a period, someone seconds that, and then I pass around the vote. It's a secret ballot vote, so nobody knows who voted or how they voted. Count them and go from there. So the first position is chairman. Would anyone like to nominate a candidate for chairman?
Cameron.
Who made that nomination?
Jason.
Jason, okay.
Second.
There's no other nominations. I'll make a motion to close the nominations. For chairman.
Does anyone want to second the?
Second.
Well, then we do not need to cast ballots. Steve Amrine continue to be chairman. board of directors. Okay, the next officer position is vice chairman.
Dale Warnke.
Second.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close.
Any seconds on that?
Sure.
That was the vice chairman. So the next position is secretary treasurer. You
Yeah,
want to
well,
press that? Yeah.
I think in the bylaws, if I'm not mistaken, there is one specific for secretary and one for treasurer. In the past, I think we've had a motion that's been made, where we combine. So, speaking of the two, then if secretary treasurer, if somebody would like to make a motion to combine those two, you can do that.
I see no reason not to. I'll make that motion.
So we decide in the case.
Second motion.
So it sounds like that's passed. Oh, all, excuse me, all in favor say. Opposed, same. Would that be passed?
Okay, so our next position is secretary treasurer. Do I have a nominee for the position of secretary? Does anybody make a nomination?
Brian, are you so inclined?
If I have to.
Rousing endorsement. I nominate Brian Sherman.
A second.
Close and it's.
Close. We have a second on motion to close. Brian is selected secretary treasurer. And so the fourth and final position is assistant secretary treasurer.
Long night, Jason.
Second that.
Move to close.
I'll second that.
Jason is the Assistant Secretary Treasurer. That's, it's for the officers. That's, have the newly elected officers. Congratulations to the new officers.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for going over those policies with us. Yeah, make sure we all get that signed before we leave tonight, so. Anyone else have anything for Robert was here? All right. So, okay, we'll go ahead and continue on. The next item on the agenda is the CEO update.
Sorry, I always have to say that. So a couple things to update everybody. Thanks, Robert. 3 to 5 year strategic planning project. So if you guys remember far back when we did the strategic planning projects, we presented the board, we approved those projects. So now they're sort of ready to go from a priority standpoint, and then we'll present those, what that 3 to 5 year looks like. So Crystal's going to be leading those projects and the efforts to prioritize them and to sort of plan those and then start executing those projects. So the official date is July 3rd. She will be stepping into that role completely 100% of the time. And so we're going to be working on the planning, some more to come. That will be kicking off on July 3rd. So we're sort of moving her completely out of that old role and back into her new role as project. Exciting. Fleet replacement. I just wanted to update everybody. I didn't know if you saw it or had any questions on the CEO report. Unfortunately, we heard from our vendor on our bucket truck. So this was a truck that we ordered last year, but put the money in this year's budget. I don't know the exact number that's in the budget, but unfortunately it's not going to deliver this year. Don't know that there's a whole lot we can do unless someone knows how to build one of those trucks. So anyways, we're gonna have to put that next year. It will free up cash, but we're gonna have to wait until next year. We'll live along with what we got. We do have one truck that it's gonna replace that has been a pain, and we are spending quite a bit of money on it. But I don't know of another solution at this point, other than we'll just wait to get it next year.
There's no other like used good ones.
I think the one we have is fine for now. Honestly, it is nickel and diming us a little bit, but it's working.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, it'd be better still than a used one. So it's unfortunate. One thing that we were talking about in the safety meeting this morning when fleet got brought up was we really need to go back and look at, so we have a schedule of, it's normally 10 years for the big trucks, unless, you get to the 10 years and we've had no maintenance problems and it's fine, then obviously we won't replace it, or if it happens before. The big question is the way we have those all planned out are really based on the lead times, when we created that 5 years ago. So the guys are going to start working with Pat to really take a look at that and see, do we need to start ordering trucks 2 years in advance? We're not the only ones that's seeing this. It's across the entire, really utilities in general.
Supply chain, Brad, or what? I mean,
It's supply chain and labor, both. Yep. And I think demand is what I also heard. That they've got more orders than they're able to keep up with. New digester load. So I know we've been talking about this project for a little bit. It's starting to move now. We got all the loading requirements from the developer of this. We got it over to our contract engineer to take a look at our windmill, which is essentially an analysis that shows what we need to do. This is a decent sized load. It's on a sub that's got some capacity, but the problem is the line that's getting there is not big enough. And so we are going to have, and one of the lines is a double circuit pole. So if you guys remember what we paid in New Point, it's about a mile long, it's 3-phase double circuit pole. This is going to be a very expensive project coming up. There is a line, there's a line extension that the member will pick up some, but they're also going to get revenue credits. And if you know of a digester, that digester doesn't stop. And so they're going to get a ton of revenue credits because it's a perfect load. I mean, it's not perfect, but it is a high load factor load. So it's going to generate a lot of revenue. Therefore, it's going to get a lot of revenue credits. Reason I'm bringing this up is this is one of those where, we were trying to bring up things as there is no budget that would account for that. That's your 10% over or whatever that number was. So it's coming up as soon as we get things, we're in design right now. So I have no idea exactly what the costs are going to be. But we do know that we're going to have to update the line. And it's a good mile from the sub. But good news is the sub has plenty of capacity, which could have been a problem because of work users out right.
So I know the plan right now is to bottle that and ship it out.
Yep.
So has there been any discussion about potentially converting that over and them using that or any kind of generating there with that?
If the cost that we give them for a line extension exceeds what it would cost them to buy a generator and put in there, is that where you're going? Yes, they would do that. I don't see, a generator to run that type of load, well over $1 million. So I don't see that being a problem, but you never know. It's a risk. I'll keep you guys updated with this one because this is truly one of those really projects that at this point has a lot of unknowns. It's good. It's a great load. It has a great load factor. It's a good load to have. Any other questions on it? Board guidance work. So we got a couple things, that we really are going to need to start working with the board. And this isn't one of those where we're going to come into a board meeting and decide what we need, right? It's going to take multiple board meetings to sort of discuss and get guidance from you all. So one is the financial management plan. Matt had presented that to you all a few times. We want to kind of bring that back up, get back into that. That financial management plan is going to tell us what we need to do and what our goals are from financial standpoint, whether, what change do we want to pull? Where do we want to go? So that's number one that we're going to start we'll bring to you next month. Again, however long it takes to get through, it's fine. I don't know that there's a deadline, but we do want to tee that up and start discussing that. So Matt's prepared for that discussion next month. The second thing, and I don't know that there's a time frame on this either, but I really want to dig back into so if you guys remember when we did our offsite for strategic plan, we talked about vision. We kind of came up with, if you remember, where we kind of thought it was a 2.5. I want to revisit that and really lay out what is the vision? What do we think? What do we want to be, right? Do we want to be, electric and electric only? And this is it. And I wouldn't put this with the broadband stuff. I really think we need some guidance on where do you want us to go from a looking at our business long term. So anyways, we'll bring some tools to the table and start discussing that. Again, that's nothing you're going to make a decision in one board meeting. Quite honestly, I wouldn't mind bringing in some other, experts in the field. We could even bring in the county commissioners or whatever, as far as like trying to get some stakeholders to the table to figure out like, where do we want to go? You've always heard me saying, I want to be a resource. We have local presence. We have a unique business model. I want to be a resource for our rural community and be an advocate for our rural community. And I always say, I want to be as important to our members as our cell phones are to us, right? And so there's some decisions that we need to make, and those are really board level decisions as far as what direction we want to go. Any questions on that? Matt, you want to give the update on the operations building?
I talked to two more of the people we've been talking to. So today today I talked to them. We got one meeting set up for July 10th. And the other one, they're supposed to get back with me hopefully tomorrow as to what their day is. And then I have one more that I have to set a meeting with, and then we'll have all the preliminary stuff, and then we'll be able to go forward there. So hopefully my goal was to have met with everybody and have their initial concepts by July 15th at the latest. And then we can, hopefully by the next board meeting, be able to say, hey, this is which one we think might be the best, or have two or three ideas.
So Steve, just to kind of bring you up to date on the operations building, it was brought up as a risk years ago. Years ago, they had a plan. So we brought it back up a year or two ago. Then COVID hit and we kind of stalled, but the idea was we were going to go out to 4 or 5 different contractors, ask them for their, show them what we got, show them the area we got, and ask them for their best concept with an estimated cost. And then we would review all those, figure out what concept we thought met our needs. And by the way, there's a committee on this, Clay's on the committee. They came up with wants and needs. They toured some other facilities. So now we're just kind of waiting on getting these concepts that the committee will figure out, okay, here's the best concept, right? And then they'll need to pick what builder we go with, and then start working with that builder on that concept and start defining what the costs are. There is money in the budget this year to work with an architect to start really laying out, because you're going to need that in order to get real cost. Because I think that's where it's got to go, right? Is what is the true cost of doing this? And then start slicing and dicing if we need to from there.
You have a map of like if you look down on the paper of the existing buildings and then where you proposed.
In general, most of I think every contractor that has come in has kind of said it's going to be awful tough with our existing structure to remodel it. They said you're going to spend about as much. The existing structure is functionally obsolete. It is effectively.
I know you put in the building other stuff and eventually it'll probably be all blacktop, but drainage is a big deal. So somebody's got to figure the drainage out before you put the building up.
And that's something that they've talked about too, is thankfully there's kind of a wet spot down there by the railroad already. That water kind of congregates already. So that was kind of the hope, is that could just give.
We don't own that water spot, do we?
I think we do own.
No, it's just, we own part of it, but most of it's, and the reason I know this is if you guys remember when we fixed the blacktop back there, we had pools of water that weren't draining off our blacktop.
Yeah.
So it kind of crumbled there. So when we came in and did that project where we put all that new gravel in, Schaumburg basically dug us a new drain, and we've got like riffraff on top of it. But no, you're right. Drainage here is going to be tough, but that should be part of the architect's work.
That is part of it, yeah. I mean, we've given them our site. They've had plans. Brian Keith had an AutoCAD of our existing building, and he gave them that as well. So they've been able to, they know what we have. So some of the things aren't really in the best spot existing wise, to like the big tower, and depending on how you go, there are some things that aren't exactly, they were perfect when they were built, but they're not really perfect for a different building.
You get that Morton building in the way, you got the tower in the way, you get the substation in the way.
Can't really move all of it. Geothermal in the way.
Geothermal in the way.
But that's the way it is.
Any questions on any of the projects? Any questions on the CEO report at all?
Yeah, I'm not up there, Brett, but on your broadband fiber, we will be setting up meetings next week with SEI, working with partnership with Southeastern. At the annual meeting, I had 2, 3, 4 people come up and talk to me about the close proximity that fiber is being run to them that they can't hook on, and they were requesting, strongly encouraging us to explore any options we had to get them fiber as quickly as we could. So
So it's interesting when you say that because we've really ramped up our work on figuring out what options to sort of bring to the board. What we're learning more and more is you kind of got to have a strategy before you apply for these grants. Like we got to know, are we going to run this thing? Are we going to build it and run it? Are we going to have a partner? We plan to bring kind of all options to the board with some pros and cons and some data behind it, right? Because they're totally different business models. They're totally different risks. They're totally different investments that we would have to make. So we've met with 3 or 4 different folks now that have all these different models. And I feel like Matt, myself, and Sam know enough to be really dangerous at this point. So we are going to be working together in the next couple of weeks to start putting together some options with pros and cons to start to talk here with the board on like, if we were to do something, what would we do? Because you kind of got to know that before you get into the cycle of grants, right? In other words, if you're going to get into a partnership, you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to know that prior to writing a grant, because there's a huge advantage when you have a partnership in these grants, especially when your partnership is with a telco or someone that's doing this stuff already. So, and there is options there that I feel really confident about. So we are working on it. It's probably going to need to be executive session / special board meeting to go over those when we get them done. But I can tell you that, like I said, me, Matt, and Sam have in the last couple of weeks have really jarred that up because we're gonna miss the Indiana grant piece of it because it's going to be due before August. It's about 80 million, I think. But the requirements for that one, if you get $1 or $2 million, it's not going to tell you a whole lot that's not going to give you enough. We don't believe we would get enough from that program for us to be able to make a good business decision on it anyway. So we're really ramping up for this BEAD stuff. We did get some good news today about BEAD. If you look at the amount of addresses that are clearly covered in BEAD, it's like 4,000 addresses. So and those would be addresses that would qualify for BEAD dollars. So that's a good number. We didn't think it'd be that high, honestly. Because the BEAD requirements are up now, right? So the old 25-3 stuff's gone. 100 by 10 or 20, I believe. Which starts to put the people that show up on the maps, the old maps, as underserved. Now they're basically not served. It's just that it is like really.
So the FCC did get that done.
And you guys saw the BEAD grant dollars announced for it. You know?
So the line of sight stuff's not going to qualify then.
Right.
So that increases our chances.
Yeah.
It does, but this is highly competitive, highly competitive. I mean, the folks like Great Plains, they're going to go after these dollars because for them, it's just more they can build out their system that's already really here. So it will be very highly competitive. Am I confident that we can get some dollars? Yeah, I mean, I think there is. The amount of money that Indiana got, talking to James and some of the folks that have been in the trenches with fiber, as long as the state comes up with a plan to distribute the dollars to the folks that are going to go serve the unserved and not use it for their operational other needs. As long as their plan does that, we believe that amount of money, which is $868 billion, is enough to get all the unserved, to get Indiana connected in fiber.
Well, I think it's important that, at least this is my thought, that we remember, we don't have to be the big player.
Yep.
We can facilitate this however it is to accomplish that very thing. Our members don't have to go through us as long as we get our members served. That's what we need to be doing.
And when we're looking at this project, that's the first thing that these partners ask you is what's your board's goals, right? We know the board said we're going to serve everybody, right? We're not going to pick and choose, right? We know that what we care about is getting this service to them, right? That's the number one goal. Everyone in getting this done, regardless of who does it, how we do it. So when we're looking at all the options that we're probably going to bring to you, it's kind of all above, right? It's, hey, we're going to build it, own it and maintain it. It's, we're going to partner and let somebody else do all the work and throw a little bit of cash at it or make ready at it. All the above we're looking at. Quite honestly, I think the team that's working on this,
It's like anything, it's higher risk, higher reward.
correct.
That's, and I'm certain we all have different risk appetites in this room, just as Sam, Brett and I all have different opinions.
We don't even all agree, quite honestly. But we're putting together the pros and cons so that we can easily, not easily, because I'll be quite honest, this is way more complicated than I ever imagined, but at least be able to talk intelligently about it to you guys so that you know what that means as far as an option, what risks there are, what pros and cons are for all this stuff. But did I answer your question, Dale? Any other questions?
We talked briefly about communicating what Rick Nami from the commissioners had disclosed options for an updated version of what we'd had previously. Did we put that on the website?
No, we didn't.
To go out and look and see if they're eligible.
Say that again.
So members can go look and see what they could possibly be eligible for as far as internet options.
We can do that if the board wants to. I think,
It's coming from the commissioners and they're distributing it. It'd be a source for our members to be able to educate themselves to see if there's other options they haven't reached yet. I sent out to 3 different people and 2 of the 3 were able to get T-Mobile and didn't realize it. So in areas that were not available a year ago.
yeah.
We're talking rural Edensburg area. So I don't know if that's something that gets applied to our members.
I mean, we can. It's up to you guys. If you guys want to put it on the board. We talked about this as a team and I can't remember exactly why. I mean, if you all are in agreement to put that out on our website, I don't really have any problem with it.
It helps our members.
Depends exactly what we're, because there was also some stuff on there about some towers and things that was.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, I know the one in Napoleon is full.
Now,
There are towers around, but they don't all have capacity. So I guess I'd like to see the document before I said, yeah, just put it out. That'd be fun.
yeah, that honestly, that now I'm starting to remember the conversation. So we discussed it and talked about it amongst my team. Our thought process is do we want to set ourselves up to say, these are the people that have a possibility, and then they start calling and we're not the people to call to tell you that this person, T-Mobile's available or this one's available. EDC is. Maybe we could do something where you put it on the website that says, hey, talk to the EDC. I got a feeling we're going to field a bunch of phone calls over, is T-Mobile available in my area? We have no idea. I know we say on there, and we could put on there that these are only possibilities that we are aware of, but those aren't the phone calls you're going to get. You're going to get phone calls that say, hey, you're saying T-Mobile is available here. What do I need to do? So that's the risk. I'll do it if you guys want to do it. I think we will field phone calls about it, and it could cause issues.
That's okay. I'll just forward anybody with questions myself. That's okay. Just a thought.
You know, what we could do too is that we could definitely put a statement, something on there about contact the local EDC with questions about what's available. It doesn't matter. We'll do whatever you guys want. I'm just saying the risk of putting it out there is we're going to get a bunch of phone calls.
Well, to me, it's similar to the solar thing. We don't want to be making recommendations or suggestions or anything like that. If we can direct them to EDC as a service to our members, then I think that's the prudent thing to do. But to Jason's point, if we're going to do anything beyond that, we need to make sure that the information we're providing is 100% accurate. We can stand by it.
Any other thoughts? You want me to send out that document to everybody? I've got it.
If anybody asks, I'll just send it. I just thought it'd be helpful for members.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on it? I mean, that was what we were talking about, was we were afraid we would get a bunch of phone calls.
I mean, I feel like if we want to do something similar to the solar, like a fax FAQ sheet on what options are available in the area and include every option, like the ETCs and, all of them. I think that's okay, but I don't know if you want to like specifically promote one company or another. I know we are doing a bill stuffer this month for all of the new satellite options, because NRTC rolled out, I can't remember, 5 or 6 new options that are a lot more data and speeds than what we currently had. So I know that's going in the bills next week. So maybe that's a good time to have all of those choices, plus include, if you don't want satellite, possibly we've got cellular options or AT&T or Watch, just so that we cover everybody and not just certain people. As long as we cover everyone, I'd be okay with it.
I think.
I'm gonna take an action item.
Options from Decatur County that were available, but not necessarily our members since we go outside Decatur County,
Right.
But
I'm not convinced that we can't word that thing and post that thing where almost like we don't recommend anybody for solar, but we do list folks. And there's some verbiage in there. I'm gonna take an action item on it because I'm not convinced we can't come up with something or something. I think that was the risk that the girls up front really thought was we're gonna get phone calls on this but I'm not, let us work it. Is that all right?
That's fine.
We'll try to work the document. If we come up with something, I'll shoot you. Well, like I said, I'm open to whatever you guys want to do. I'm either way on it. All right. Any other questions? Keep moving.
Yeah, keep moving.
All right. So company metrics, I'm going to fly through these. So if you have any questions, let me know. So we're talking about May. May was about 9.5% cooler, believe it or not. So you can see, I'm not going to point my pointer because it'll make you sick, but
That's right.
it's the highlighted one there. 5-year average is obviously the line. You can tell where we're at there. HDD, so this is heating degree days. Again, heating degree days and cooling degree days there's a huge correlation between our sales and where that ends up, right? So you can see that the heating degree days, because it was cooler, is quite a bit higher than not quite a bit, but it is higher than our 5-year average. Which leads us to purchased energy. So we're about 2.1% higher. It almost looks flat on this graph, but it's about 2.1% higher in sales than our 5-year average. And then our demand was about 1% lower than our average. So essentially pretty much flat, both. As far as retail sales, some of the things that stand out to me, if you see residential, they really did pop back in. We really started the year way negative to budget. So these numbers are to budget, but you can see here 3.2 on residential. We did pop back up, getting closer to 0. Commercial really popped, obviously, right? Usually during this time of the year. Industrials finally are starting to work their way up, and then transmission is very, very strong. This is what's been driving us closer to what budget is primarily. So if you look at budget to year, so last month we were at negative 4.5 overall. We are now at 3.19. So we're getting we're one or two really, really hot days away from getting back to budget here. This is the graph that me and Matt talked about today and said, wow, it's been a very, very quiet beginning of the year. Well, now we're going to see a blip on here after tonight, I'm sure. Shouldn't have said anything, right? Lost consumer hours. So that's May right down there. Although we've had some outages, we're lower than the 5-year average, but we've had some outages. They just haven't been major outages, right? They haven't been enough to really make this climb. So that means they're shorter duration outages. What's the causes of those from this last month? Dead ash trees and animals has been the story of the year. We have critters that I think are on steroids or something, and ash trees that are falling. So that.
Correct. In April, 438 small animals.
That's lost consumer hours.
Consumer hours from small animals that went up that high in April.
Yeah, but remember, lost consumer hours, this could be 2 outages that lasted long, long duration.
Gotcha.
Or one outage that had a ton of people on it.
substation that time.
True.
Yeah.
That was a lot of
It just
hours.
looks a little,
Actually, I think one of these was a substation outage, now that you say that,
That could make.
due to an animal,
wow.
Squirrel one.
or it might have been a squirrel, yeah.
Squirrel in the substation.
This is the time of the year when animals move and get into our stuff. And like you all know, the ash trees. Stop me if you have questions. AR, I'm just showing 90 days. You guys got the 30 and 60 in your packet, trending way lower, as we've been here the last couple of years. Crew visits, we're a little behind on our safety stuff here. So crew visits, I actually did one today. So we plan to meet the goal on these, but you can kind of see where we're at to plan. And then near misses and corrective actions, you know, we had our safety meeting this morning and added a few more in there. So trending okay there. Good news is we're having near miss. We are documenting near misses and doing some corrective actions. We actually had one of the trucks come in and hit the garage door the other day. So we did a near miss and about this morning in safety meeting, things like that. Any questions on any of the company metrics at all?
We're good?
All right, Matt.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, Matt, you're up.
Okay, net utility plant, we put in or closed quite a few work orders this last month. So there's $260,000 there put in our utility plant. Our current and accrued assets is down. Our investments dropped, cash investments and AR came down. And then along with that, our current accrued liabilities went up, and that's increase in AP mostly. Next, we have our income statement. I can read it on my computer. In general, our operating revenues are running ahead of budget, but the power cost is running a little bit further ahead of budget. So our margins are being compressed a little bit. Hopefully, as the tracker catches up, that will swing here over the next several months. Operations is pretty much right in line with budget. Maintenance expense is under budget, and a lot of that is because a lot of our crews have replaced over 100 poles so far year to date. So that when the crews replace a pole, you have less maintenance and operations expense because you capitalize their time. Billing and member services is higher. That's a training, and we'll be over all year, but we'll on a monthly basis get back closer to normal, as that's directly with admin and billing and member services. There's just how stuff is coded and was budgeted. In general, everything else is pretty close for the most part from a budget. There's not really anything in the other operating margins or non-operating margins. We're running behind on total margins for the year, but that hopefully will come back as we get closer to our budgeted sales as well as the tracker. So.
And this is the first month of financials that you're seeing the tracker, right? So the new calculated tracker with the Hoosier stuff in there. This is first full month.
And the tracker really hasn't, it'll come next month.
Yeah. The second, yeah.
Any questions on the income?
Yeah, because it's always
a month.
It's always trying to catch up.
Always peaking zero.
When it comes down, we'll still have a month or two of hangover that'll help make up more of this.
That's the hope, yes.
Yeah. We hope that it starts to come back down.
Yes.
We expect it to, I shouldn't say.
We're working on
We expect it to.
If you look at our forecast for our tracker though, it's always chasing zero. So it's, you know, when I mean zero, truing up what the power bill is compared to what's in our base rates.
Any questions on the statement of operations or income statement, whichever you prefer to call it? Great, yep. Cash flow statement, there's not really a whole lot there to say. In general, we have a little more cash from cash at the investments went down, but the cash is a bit higher, so. We did borrow $700,000 this week. We got a lot of bills that came due right here at the end of the month. I would still like to recommend that we borrow $1 million of long-term money. Rates are, our line of credit, we're borrowing at 7%, and we can borrow at I believe I looked at it earlier, it's 3.88 as of today for 30-year money. So I will probably formally present something on that next month with the financial management plan, but that's my professional opinion is we should borrow the money at this time or in the near future. Next, we have plant. See, there we've got, we've done a lot of pole replacements out at Westport, which is where they're all coming. And most of that is from that is the pole replacements dash 2022 red tag. And then I've got Westport parentheses. Most of that is loose, but they have.
April or May?
That's May's. I probably forgot to change the title at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to.
That's okay. Numbers are right.
Yes. I have to manually go in and change that. I must have missed that. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Distribution work plan, still negative. That's because we sold the wire back or sold the wire. New services, that's meters and that is what it is. I mean, there's nothing we really control there. Meters and transformers. I believe when I talked a couple of weeks ago, we had everything in that we had ordered as of last year, except for, I believe it was 6 of them. So we are in good shape on our meters and transformers. I mean, that's transformers, all of them, but 6 that we still have, which unfortunately they're expensive ones to come yet, but we do have all the smaller ones. And let's see what else is there. G2, G4, G6 is complete. Continue to make some progress through the meter poles. Most of that is meter poles that were replaced with either underground service or retired. There's very few that there is a meter pole that got replaced with a meter pole. Most of them are on pedestals now. So, but there are a few. See there, the vehicles and trailers, 300,000 of that was the truck.
Was there that's what I was getting ready to ask. Didn't that 350 was that meter truck in here?
There is a meter truck in there. 300 of that is the bucket truck that we're not gonna get this year. So they said they wouldn't have the chassis to them to build on until the end of the year. So it's the chassis, not the truck or the bucket part. So.
And then Matt, where are we putting the pole replacements that the crews are doing?
That's all in the 2022 red tag Westport. That's where they both are, but the bulk of that yet is our crews.
What's our electric?
So this line item right here,
The large majority of that is our crews.
but it's not in this.
No,
So this is the line item everybody needs to be watching because we're gonna blow that 1.5 out of the water because if you remember, as part of the budget, we basically said we were gonna let the crews replace poles as they get to them, which none of those were budgeted, and they're over 100 now.
Well, they're starting to get in some that were budgeted.
Yeah, true, because
They-
we've
they
converted some. They're getting
Some
some.
are gonna go to the contractors they have now started to do.
Correct.
So they're making great progress.
I just don't want it to be a surprise. That line item is gonna go.
That number will more than likely come in higher than the budget number. But every month we'll get a better idea. I mean, we've been, to give an idea on, for you, Steve, the work orders. So what we have done is we create a work order for a section or an area of say, like a line section. All the poles that get replaced on that line section, one work order. There might be 20, in general, there's somewhere between 20 and 30 poles on that line section that are being replaced. That work order though doesn't get closed until if there's 28 poles, we don't close that work order until all 28 are done. So the money does show up though in that line there, but it isn't technically closed until all of them are complete. So we see the money, but we don't necessarily see that this was done. And that's how it flows through the system is you don't close the work order until it's done. When it's done, you close the work order, and then it's a cost. It's, as we discussed the other day, was how our US says you have to do it. So you'll see this month, we closed a bunch of work orders. If you want to go to the next slide. Go down.
I didn't put that
You
on.
didn't put that on there? No.
It's on their iPads. though.
It's on your iPads. So if you go down there at the bottom, you can see that we have replaced closed work order on 102 poles. Several of those were the last pole. It got dry enough that the crews were able to go out and close the work order. So we closed them out, so the pole showed up as done there. So they probably, cost-wise, they had 27 to 28 were in there the prior month, but then it shows up here as done, because that's how accounting knows that when a work order closes, accounting knows it's done. So. Any questions on that? I don't know if that was clear, but that's. But in general, the crews are making great progress on some poles. I mean, that's. Any questions on anything from plant or the financials in general?
I want to back up a minute. I should ask it earlier about the line extension. So there's 2 May of 23 that were due. Says that the follow-up hasn't been done yet, and there's a June. I guess I'm kind of asking for a friend since it may or may not be on this list.
Yeah, you are.
In that process, like, are you, like, when that's all done, then you're sending a letter and you're saying, hey, here's what you owe. There's no like, hey, come in and we're gonna go over this, like, you just send them a bill.
No, so we'll call. So essentially what happens is we have a monthly.
We got a meeting
We actually
coming up.
have tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll meet as a team and say, hey, this one, it's red because that means
The last time, this showed up on Smart Hub as a bill.
no, you'll get a phone call this time. Everyone will.
So these May and June, you're gonna take care of tomorrow.
Yes. Yep. That's why we're actually, Jenny was prudent that we had this meeting. So yeah.
Yes.
Our mechanism to make sure that we're hitting the 30 months in the end, we have a monthly meeting that we actually talk through those. All those are red because those are the ones we're gonna be talking about tomorrow. So yes, you're gonna get a phone call.
And before they just received a bill, basically.
That was,
This is the first time we're calling.
no, that was part of that line extension project that we did.
We redid the
I don't know, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. We contact them, sorry, at the end of construction, middle of their 30 half of 3 months, 15 months, and then at the end.
By phone. Oh, by phone.
I'll take that back. If they're gonna get a credit, sometimes at the end we don't. We'll just send them a check.
The credit.
We've had, by the middle of it, we knew they were gonna get credit too.
It does depend, right? So if they're gonna get a credit, we usually do call everyone in 30 days.
Less questions on credits.
It's actually everyone signs up.
Stating the obvious. Just stating the obvious.
But the point is, I mean, regardless, the process that we redid is working, right? The 30-month with the communication and then midway review.
I mean, when you tell somebody that
Your friend may be able to tell us better.
Oh, after the process is completed, all right.
Jason, in all honesty, no. I mean, when you tell somebody they owe you money, even though they signed a contract and they understood what they were getting into, it's never a good conversation. That was one of the reasons we said we wanted to, when we pitched that idea of getting rid of this true up and just doing like a lot of the other ones do, and we're going to estimate it, and you're going to have winners, you're going to have losers. You're never going to get away from it. I don't care how many times you call. When we call somebody at 30 days or halfway through 15 months, no, you get an earful, you're going to spend a ton of time explaining what happened, a ton of time. There's nothing in that process that's going to help it other than.
But it is the fairest way to do it.
It is the exact, I can argue that, but it creates member relation issues and we don't even factor in the time that we have to spend talking through it. That doesn't even get.
Nobody likes a bill at the end. It's just.
Yeah, but at least you're getting a warning. Before we issued no warning, there was no warning shot fired. It was at the end, here's your bill.
Yeah, and that I would suggest, yes, that's the better way of doing it. But no one's ever.
People are still just as happy as they ever were.
I'll let you.
So you're not getting a credit since you're getting a call.
I got my fair.
Don't go shopping. That's good.
Anything else from Matt? Are we good?
Call Jason's friend.
Yeah. No one's going to want to make.
You just spend money on credit.
Yes, 3391
You're on the
something.
call list.
Unanswered.
All right, thanks, Matt. Next item on the agenda, number 11. 317, Director of Education, which we briefly talked about that last month. And policy 1-02, Board of Directors. Has to do with when the meeting's going to be. So let's start out with A. It's kind of a continuation of where we left off from last month as we reviewed it. I don't see the policy on the, go back to last month's to see it, or you can go back in the dashboard. 17. And Steve, I know you've gone through some orientation. There's a few requirements in here regarding education, so you want to make certain you review those. And then Clay, you were part of the discussion last month, and so I think you were coming to the board with.
No, I've got with Jeannie, we've got a meeting set up for August 3rd and 4th at IEC, and then the other one won't come in until like November, but they haven't got anything scheduled yet. She's got it on her calendar. Once that information comes in to get you signed up, and then I'll be set up with that.
So you said the 3rd and the
I think it's
4th,
all,
August. You need 4 courses, correct?
that's all that was offered. Or is it this time we have August, third and fourth? As far as what would, course that it needed was, November 17th, but that would be available until later on. As far as it, getting that information to her to get to me. But those are the only ones available this year that are on the CCD.
So again, I'm going to make a comment that this should have been completed after the second reading. There are other probably options available. You can take courses elsewhere, if I'm not mistaken. Well, not, I guess not
I
the,
know often mine, I finished mine with Ohio Online, but that was, I don't know, that was just an option because with the COVID virtual ones, but
could
I think.
I remember,
That's offered virtual now. because
and you're probably right. I know I took one online years ago. So.
There's not as many offered online anymore.
So I guess, Clay, you're asking the board to extend, for an extension to get the coursework done, and you have a schedule.
According to Jeannie, as far as what's available here, I guess I don't have much of an option, but to ask the board for an extension on that. Sure. Schedule, and said the other one, November's, they don't have the information to her yet. Once that gets to her, then she's gonna get everything signed up.
So do you know when the additional class is available, Clay? That's 3 of them. There's 4, right? You need 4, and that's 3 of them.
We've already did the one. Thanks, Jeannie, look at differences, make sure you got it.
I do believe, and I'm not for certain, but I think at the annual meeting for IEC, I think they're going to try to offer a couple of educational components on the Sunday before the meeting. The meeting center. But again, I don't know if they're CCD courses or if they're DLC courses.
So in the board packet in the action items, there was assigned to Jeannie, and it was in reference to education. And does that relate to this policy then?
No, I think that issue, Jason, was for our employees. We have a reimbursement policy, don't we, Brad, for our employees?
With employee training, not director.
Yeah.
Talking about the open item?
Yeah.
Open item?
I had it.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's not related to this.
It's not related to directors, that's employees. That's that open item.
So is this an item when you make a motion and vote on for an extension?
Well, it mentions here a petition, and I don't know if that needs to be in writing as well, but I think you're just saying you're wanting, you might want to get with Jeannie and see if there's any opportunities for online as well.
You're saying this is what we had. She showed me which ones were available, qualified for the CCD. And that, like I said, that's what all members.
Do they have any other comments? I happened to attend our IEC meeting. I was gonna mention it when we got down to that point, but I'll mention it now. Our last IEC meeting virtually. And the breakout session had to do with what education pieces do IEC directors need to have and what's being done at the board level. What are some of the requirements there, things of that nature. I didn't get to participate in the breakout session because I was virtual, but there was a report out by all the districts. And there were a few of them, well, at least one of them, that mentioned that board members get paid for having their CCD, for having their BOC. They would get paid more, or they go to the gold. And I just wonder if we want to try to do anything with this policy related to that, or if it's impactful to our decision on not having the CCD after 2 years.
We changed the policy at Hoosier also. You have to have your credentials to sit on the Hoosier board now.
Okay.
You can't be a Hoosier. I think we did CCD and. I think the idea is, that's important to get that done. And that's why when we did this policy, we said 2 years. Everybody was encouraged to get that done right away. You could essentially be kicked off the board for not getting them done in 2 years, according to this policy.
Sure.
And I don't think that was to scare anybody. That was get your training done so that we can have.
Because it's a critical aspect.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a punishment necessarily, but, well, it could be, but that wasn't really the intention. The intention was to go get it done, just knock it out.
I think Clay had a verbal kind of petition to the board.
Was Jeannie only looking at what IEC offers? Because there's other places that offer outside of IEC, and that would be as well.
And I think though, in that,
It'd be on Clay to pay for it himself. But yeah. That's part of trying to get this done as quick as possible here.
So since he already has the first two scheduled, so we just make a motion and put a deadline on the next, when it has to be completed by. That's June of 2024. But depending on schedules too, that's hard to do too.
He's had 2 years to do it too, so.
What is it now? It's June. So 6 months will be the end of the year. Do they offer courses? Did you say there were some in December, Clay?
It's in November.
and I had mentioned that there potentially could be something offered through IEC prior to to their annual meeting.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it,
Okay.
I can help find that out for you as well, but again, I don't know.
Looks like, excuse me, August 3rd is 2,600, August 4th is 2,610, and November 17th is 2,620. I don't know which one is completed. Like, 2,640, so that would leave 2,630 left.
We'll need course 2630. There's a note she had here on this sheet for all the advancement.
So for sure you'll have three, and then potentially if you look to see if there's another offering, maybe close by, if you could get that scheduled by the end of December.
In the summer,
End of December.
could be out and check with Gina to find out if you can find anything else.
Okay, well, I think Suzanne, you said.
I'll make
something
a motion.
What is the motion?
To have his coursework completed by the end of December this year.
December and or what other options does he have if there's virtual? I know it was Ohio Energy. I'm trying to think of the link I had. I did 2 courses. One was a CCD. And then there's also some that are on demand that you don't actually have to. Ohio offered some that were on demand. You could take whenever you wanted and answer the questions with it.
I see.
Now, I don't know if that was a COVID exception or not, but I'm trying to think, Clay, I'll send that link. That you can sign up at any time. You don't have to have a specific time to do it.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have the first and a second. Any additional discussion?
I'm in the unlikely event that he's not compliant, what then? Is that something that needs, I mean, and I don't want to be punitive, but you know, this requirement's here for all of us.
I would say then Clay would have to petition the board again. You know, if there's classes available January 5th and 6th, et cetera, that we have them scheduled, ready to go. But I would think at the end of the year, we have to revisit it and then petition the board again. That would be my suggestion.
Because your motion right now is just
Anything.
to have it done by the end of the year.
Calendar year. Yeah. Unless somebody has any other thoughts, I mean, to that point, that's the route we can go. So we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, the same. All right, so you can let us know what you find out. I'll see what I can find out for the 3rd of December. So the next item has to do with policy 102. I think Brett's mentioned here that there's been a question regarding the having the board meetings maybe possibly moved to the 14th. Or time change associated with it. So let's discuss it. Thoughts?
I have some concerns over the 5:30 start. But that's just, it's hard enough to get here at 6:30 for me, but I understand some of you are in town and it's not you, but I mean, I'm open to discuss it, but I'm not in favor of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's discuss maybe reasonings and whys and yeah, Dale, were you gonna say?
Well, yeah, it's saying it's is this a suggestion or is this a request? I guess, because I distinguish, I mean, a suggestion is, here's what I'd like to do is.
I think it's just a suggestion.
I think the 5:30 was definitely, one of the big reasons is, you know, we got more and more employees coming here. You know, if no one's going home between, you know, when we close and coming here. These guys have been here since 7:30 this morning. You know, taken away from their, and I get it, it's once a month, it's not that big a deal. Steve and I were kind of just talking, throwing up that idea.
Are you talking about the 5:30?
5:30.
Time.
Okay, the time, I mean, I hear Jason, the time works wonderfully for me. But I'm curious as to why we're talking about changing dates, changing days, excuse me. I mean, hadn't it been on Thursday, the 4th Thursday forever and a day?
Ever since I.
Yeah, it was a suggestion just basically on a schedule conflict during certain times of the year. I didn't know if it was a big deal. I just mentioned, could we change it to Wednesdays, especially next month? I won't be able to attend virtual or I was just talking about, is it an option or would it conflict with anybody getting the packets out or Brett? And he said it wouldn't conflict with him. So once he said it wouldn't conflict with him, I just asked if the board would consider moving it from Thursday to Wednesday. Just as general request,
Permanently or a
as permanently going forward, just to move it to Wednesday. I have no issue with the time, 5:30, 6:30. I prefer not 7:30 or 8:30, but I have no issue with the time's not an issue. I just asked due to personal schedule conflicts I have coming up. I know in the next 2 to 3 months out of the next, instead of me doing virtual or me not attending, I just asked if it would be a big deal to move those to Wednesdays.
I'd like to know what happened to the new guy brings the snack rule. I don't see any snacks.
It's a Wednesday, I'll bring snacks.
Those guys don't. Oh, that's.
Next month, I know our fair is going on that, Wednesday, or whatever else Wednesday would work better for me next month.
And we're staffing thing.
Does Wednesday work better for you?
Yeah, Wednesday, July's meeting Wednesday.
Do we have to move it permanently? Could we just do it for 3 months if you need those 3 months? Just leave it, and then we have to do a bylaw change.
It's not a bylaw, right?
No, it'd be a resolution if we try to make it permanent.
And it would be a bylaw change, right?
Policy.
You need to do a resolution because the bylaws say you need a resolution. So you have to do it like, you have to do a resolution and in conjunction change the policy. But that can all be done, that need a supermajority.
Gotcha.
I clarified that just because I had kind of a question on
I
it.
personally am not worried about Wednesday or Thursday too much.
I initially thought it was going to be more of a scheduling issue for me to move it to Wednesday. But then I figured out that it may not be as bad, but I know we've made some concessions in the past about moving it on a particular day. And I must admit, I like the 5:30, but I do understand why some people might like it later, so it may be it's worked in the past, if we leave it as is and we make concessions as needed.
So could we change it for next month? We know two of you have a problem with Thursday.
I'm fine with whatever. I mean, Wednesdays and the times.
Thursday bad, right? You didn't.
Next month, Thursday.
We can do 1 o'clock if you guys want. Yeah. Tell you good with that?
Is Wednesday an issue with that schedule? I mean, is that what it is?
Wednesday probably work better for me.
Wednesday would work better?
If you can.
Like there's less events on a Wednesday night than there is.
Exactly, there's hardly any events on Wednesday nights.
So for me, it probably,
Well, let's,
and it doesn't matter either way.
let's find out, make sure that it's not more of an issue for anybody for Wednesday. As I said, I thought it was gonna be for me, but I can probably make it work as well. So,
Wednesday or Thursday. I don't. 30 is great.
Or do you want to, so going to 5:30, do you want to 6?
Time's not an issue for me, it's just the Thursday.
so it sounds like, how about you, Dale? Is,
I'm not in favor of changing, but I'm one vote, so.
okay.
Yeah. It's been incorporated into my schedule for 5 years, so it's a priority.
Will that change then? The board packet? Do we need to consider that? The board packet comes out, if we move it?
Friday's still okay if it's a
Right.
Thursday.
Friday is still okay then?
It's gonna be hard to move that any earlier.
Okay,
Right.
so, if we were to incorporate.
Is it an issue for your staff with Wednesday?
No, I don't, it truly isn't.
Okay, if that's, I mean, that was my concerns. Okay.
We don't care either way. I mean, once we get used to it,
Let's make the last meeting of every month. Have more time to get stuff out
we could do the last Wednesday at 1:00.
of every month.
AMP.
Well, those other jobs we have might get in the way.
Maybe the last day of the month. Okay, well, somebody make a motion.
I'll make a motion to move the meetings to the fourth Wednesday of the month.
Beginning at what time? Same time?
Meeting at what time?
5:30?
I have no concern with time, so that's up to, that Wednesday is mine.
So that's the only change, that's the only change you want to make.
That's what I'll make the motion for right now, is to move the meetings to the fourth Wednesday of the month.
So we
Yes.
at least that'll be through, till the policy changes again, right? Or the resolution is created.
Do you mind saying that's a resolution to change the policy?
I make a resolution to change the policy
I'm sorry, I'm just,
to the fourth Wednesday of the month. I'll start with that one, then someone else can make it on the time. How's that? I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
We have a first and a second. I'll ask if there's any further discussion. Do we even consider like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving in advance now? I mean, we're all good with that then? Is that,
We've done that before.
the Wednesday?
Normally on a Tuesday.
We moved it to Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or depends when Christmas falls.
I don't know that we kept it on Wednesday, but okay. Well, we can deal with that, I guess.
Christmas Day, I don't want to be here.
So we have a first and a second.
thanks.
Any additional modifications, amendments made? Okay, so, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. So,
oh,
Time, yeah, we had to.
well, no, we don't, that wasn't,
Yeah.
I would have thought that would have been included in the original resolution.
Can I?
It was just for the
time
Wednesday.
was not.
I just said Wednesday. I didn't make the time.
I know you did.
Another-
Okay, so you want another resolution?
I'm not changing the time. I just wanted to,
Hey, if anybody,
so if somebody else wants to change the time.
Anyone who says, I would like to make a resolution to.
Amend the policy.
Amend a policy to change the start of the meeting time to 5:30 instead of 6:30.
Drop the mic on that one. That's good.
Is that good? All right.
I'll second.
Start at 5:30? I thought you said you wanted 6:30.
we have a first and a second to change, the meeting time to 5:30. Begin time. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed?
Aye.
I think that was two, so motion passes. All right, so I suppose, I guess for the run out, so that policy will be changed to reflect.
So that's effective in July then?
Yes. So we'll make the fourth Wednesday.
Third. You said the fourth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third, you're gonna have financials.
I'll be quiet.
Fourth Wednesday in July at 5:30. All right, we got through that. Next item on the agenda is the core discussion. Brett?
Okay, so, I was gonna have Sam come, but I think I can talk through this. So we gotta make a decision on core.
Yeah.
They're not changing the way to become a membership. They're closing membership. They have the funding they need. They're closing membership literally at the end of this month. So we need to make a decision. Pros and cons, I kind of listed them there. This is, and I'll let Matt talk about this because he was in the same meeting as I was as far as kind of talking about like, what are the benefits? It's one of those deals where if we don't end up doing any fiber, and so there's two different types of fiber. One is going fiber to the home. We're gonna have a ring, all of our communications from Smart Grid are taken. There's a huge benefit of being in Accord, being a member of Accord if we do that. There is a revenue stream there. Could even be bigger than what they're thinking. They have large hopes of making this more than just an Indiana network. And the benefit is like, once you get like these, I'm bringing this up and this isn't in our territory, but like a Walmart, right? So if you can get a seat at the table when you're Accord and you have this entire network to get some of these really big companies, and then you're getting paid as a part of that revenue. That's if you do a fiber to the home project and then a ring. we know eventually, and we can all probably argue different timeframes, but eventually we're going to need communications for smart grid, and it's going to be a loop around our substations. We look backing at 6 years when we talked about, we had pricing to do that. Man, I wish we would have done it then, but anyway, we didn't. And eventually we will need that. You look at all the things that we're going to have from a smart grid. You know, folks are starting to do it now. We're going to piece together a business case on it, but that's going to take some time. There's a benefit to Accord to having if you do that too. Your downside is you're spending that money, and if you don't do any type of fiber, whether you smart grid or fiber to the home, you're out that money, right? I mean, there is no payback at that.
Unless they sell a core.
Unless they sell Accord. That was the other thing too. So we talked to a guy that was in the FFT, which is sort of the old Accord. And he said, man, we were real conservative. We didn't spend the money to be a member of FFT, and it sold. We could have had like 5 times what our investment was. He's like, I would highly encourage it to become a member. So it's one of those deals where it opens, I mean, James would sit here and tell you guys, it's a very small amount of money for a huge potential in the future. And most people aren't going to be able to tell you what, it's going to open doors that you're not even thinking of right now. And this is our only opportunity to get in there, because if we don't become a member, they're not looking to.
I thought it was July initially.
July 1st.
Oh, I thought it was the
Oh,
end.
it's the end of July.
I thought it was the end as well. July 1st is when they're going to need to know. And it's not, last time we knew too, it was you could buy in by raising capital, and now they're no. It's
just closed.
It's closed. You can't become a member.
And you're talking 10 grand.
Yes. Yes.
Beyond the initial.
I mean, this could
Make a motion to spend 10 grand to get into it.
Okay.
I'll second.
I'm not ready to vote yet.
It's a discussion phase.
Will this affect any potential partnerships like with SEI Data or?
We asked that question, and no, it does not. In fact, it would enhance that partner.
They want to give up those strands.
We met with who you just mentioned a minute ago, and we asked that exact same question, and they said absolutely not. And in fact, we asked them, that was the person I was just talking about that said, wow, I wish we would have become a member of the FFT, which is the old Accord.
Mhm.
And so, no, it would not affect that.
And other RMCs in the area are.
Yes, there are quite a few. If you go out to the Accord website,
Okay.
talk to them.
I could remember.
There are a bunch around us that are.
Was there a grant that they did not get here?
They didn't get the grant.
Does that poke holes in any, bring up concerns that they missed out on?
No, because they're going to end up building,
Grant?
they'll end up building that
If we're a member, we'll
regardless.
still get to dictate the route. That's the.
I just didn't,
But they're-
as far as on looking at Accord, their standability or whatever, if that weakens their view or strength as a co-op, going forward, getting any more grants.
No, my opinion, yeah, it's an opinion thing, and I'd say, Steve, no. That was a very, very highly competitive middle mile grant.
Okay.
And so they were looking at more of, that grant was not necessarily connecting members to fiber. It was a middle mile grant that was connecting two networks that do serve two rings. Two rings there, it was connecting one, but there was no real tie to, I'm serving new members in that area. So my belief is that's probably why they didn't get that grant. What I would tell you is they have members of Accord already that are willing to spend the money. And we actually still may have an opportunity with HoosierNet to partner with them to do it at less than what it would cost to do it by yourself, even without the grant. Now, I don't think we're there or asking to do that yet. This is just one of those deals where it's going to close. And if
It gives us a seat at the table.
It gives us a seat at the table.
At the end of the day, if you got no seat at the table, there's nothing you can do.
Right. And we will have voting rights, and if someone on our board would want to run for their, we could.
Okay, so we have a first and a second, correct? Yes.
That's for.
The $10,000.
Okay.
I mean, I'm at road. All right, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, the same. All right, Jason, here's your energy.
What about hometown?
You have anything to?
Next month.
Next month. Your meeting's finally next month.
Hoosiers. Two meetings in June. The first was the board meeting, the 12th, and the second was Finance and Audit Committee, the 14th. The minutes from the board meeting are in your packet. A couple highlights. The first one was the new EPA rules that have been proposed by the administration are quite restrictive and are going to make fossil generation extremely difficult if these pass. Greenhouse gas emissions restrictions are going to be crippling. That's one problem. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight is that NERC has issued their highest level ever for capacity warnings for the winter of 2023 and 24. So if you're following along, you have the administration who is making mandates and choking, generating possibilities. And NERC has figured out that we don't have enough capacity potentially for winter. So that is a problem.
We should store up electricity now.
Yeah, if you could. So we did, after the meeting, we had a pretty lengthy executive session about some strategies and some projects that Hoosier is working on that we will probably participate in to combat this. But what we thought was happening is happening, and now it's starting to get more people's attention. So that is a problem. Also at that meeting, the small exception on the wholesale power contract of 5% small exception did pass unanimously. So as you recall, that means that any member system can either have in front of the meter or behind the meter resources equal to 5% of their peak demand, and that's averaged over a 5-year period or something. But for us, what is that? Was it two or three? It's 3. Sorry. So it's small, but we do have that option. So that means we could either go out and get power somewhere else. We could produce it.
So we could partner with the digester and build a generator if we so desire.
Yes. And rooftop solar does not count towards 5%. So that was always kind of an issue before. Well, how much solar are you getting? You know, people were, that was a conversation that in the past that does not count towards the
Scale solar does.
I think that's it.
To report. All right, from the IC board, as I said, we met on June 16th. I met virtually. I already brought up the breakout session. Just a couple other things, piggybacking the video that Brett shared regarding Colin. There were 14 line workers and 4 support staff that attended from April the 27th to May 13th. They installed 3.75 miles of line, had 30 poles and electrified 26 homes. So it really is a neat project. CFC presented IC with a check from CFC Education Fund for $35,750. And this fund will offset expenses for board development and education. As of 6/16, there were 65 directors around the state that are going to be attending the directors retreat held on July 29th and 30th. I did happen to hear from Lena, I think it was, if not yesterday, 2 days ago, asking me if there was anybody else that was interested. So if you, I don't know who has and hasn't signed up, if you happen, you still have an interest, contact her directly or go through me. But the youth tour took place from June the 11th through the 18th. 8 students from across the state attended, and 4 of them were from here, right, Crystal? Yeah, that's cool. And then, the facilities committee they're still working on some design completion and working with the city of Carmel. I know before renovation begins, that's gonna start happening, and I think their goal is to be in there by sometime in 24. I don't know the exact date, but I think it's going pretty good, so that's all I have regarding that. Regarding IC, does anybody else have anything before we motion to adjourn?
I do have one other thing I got. I had two members call me and, they said they were contacted about a survey, Brett, on this thing. And, they were contacted because they were members of the Theater County RMC, but they did not reside at the location that they were members. For example, one of them has a hog building or whatever, but like that, and they provide some work with their members. So they was gonna take that survey. But the guy that was doing the survey, they both told me that. Kind of rude. And when they found out that they did not live at that survey, at that meter or whatever, then they was wanting to just pull out, just hang up and go away. And the one of them said, I kept asking him questions and this, right? And they got there, the guy's name was Mark. I have no idea. But the thing is, my point is, if you are a member and someone calls you up for a survey, shouldn't you be able to do the survey if you're a member, no matter whether or not you're paying this bill. So.
It's a home.
The survey is a
What am I supposed to tell these people?
Yeah, it's a residential end use survey. So most of the questions that they're asking them is, how many TVs do you have? How many refrigerators? How many freezers? So if it's a hog building, it's not relevant because there's not any of those.
They're fans,
Right. So but there's no reason for them to be rude. So was both of the people a Mark? Did they both have the same person or
No.
two different people?
One just said he found out the guy's name was Mark on the other
Okay.
phone, and that was it. But they.
So I
did
would say that if they're not a,
What they said, yeah.
we can relay that information because it comes from Hoosier. Hoosier is the one that does the survey for us. But I would just tell them that it's a residential end use survey. So really what we're wanting to know is, do they have any EVs? Do they have gas, electric, heating? What's their water heaters? How many air conditioning units do they have? They're just wanting to know kind of the detailed information about the house. How big is the house? So if it's gonna be a hog building, a grain bin, not.
Well, they was just kind of.
Yeah.
Ticked off with, hey, wait a minute, people call me and do this. And I do have another member I talked to before, he goes, if you're gonna want me to do a survey, pay me. He was pretty, he says, I'm not doing a survey, if you're getting my information and you're using it to help your business, then you should pay me. Yeah, I get it, but.
You know what we should do, Carl? You're bringing up a great point. So I don't know that everybody on the board even knows what that survey is for. So it's a government requirement for Hoosier to do what they call PRS. So it's a power requirement study. So essentially what it's when we do grid planning, they are required to do that survey. So she is right. It's a home survey. They're trying to figure out how many people are on gas, how many people are on electric so that they can estimate what our power requirement is. So there is actually a really good reason to why we have to do that. It's a requirement. Hoosier has to do it. That's not a reason for someone to be rude. I will pass that on.
And that was just one thing, and it's
Was it sent out as an email first?
Could have
I feel
been.
like I had an email and I did it online.
They do it through email first, the way I understand it, and then they'll make phone calls. They have to do so. They have to hit statistical standards. Again, this is a government regulation that Hoosier has to follow, but it's what we use to predict what load forecasts look like.
And it only goes to like 200 members. It's not even a survey that goes to the entire membership. They select 200 people we send the file of all members, they go through, they just randomly select 200 and then they send it out. So it's a very small data point of information that they're getting.
I'll relay that in.
Okay.
In an email. Open.
I got it. Yeah, I got an open action. For some reason, I don't, I remember having a conversation.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. We talked about.
No, I remember having a conversation.
That was it. I know.
It shouldn't be a problem is my point, but yes, it is documented as an action item. My point was, Clay, is if you guys have something that you think I'm working on, make damn sure it's on my action item list, because if it ain't an open action item, I probably ain't working it.
I thought about it as we were sitting.
No big deal.
And that's why I just sent you the email right now.
That action item list is kind of my commitment to you. It's my to-do list. So if we bring it up at staff every week. So honestly, that's just a reminder to all board members. Do you think I got the ball on something? It ain't on that list. Make sure you remind me, because it ain't hard to put something on the list. And that's the only thing I meant.
I just.
Yep, no big deal.
All right, anything else?
Or I can talk about that next month.
Okay, I'd like you to do that. So we'll hear more about that next month. Then, as far as director training conferences, I don't know that anybody attended anything this past month. Anybody? All right, take a motion to adjourn.
Like the motions.
We have a first and a second. We're adjourned.
I would suggest if you guys want to stop back and see Pat and his, what he does during dispatch right now, it'd be a good time to stop back and say hi to him.
We're not too busy. I mean, if he's not too busy, if
He is, he'll let you know,
how we
trust me.
doing? How we doing?
But there are 24 different outages.
So yeah,
I
How many outages, Crystal?
24 remaining.